If you want to catch big carp like this winter, then I've got the method for you. Let me show you. Fishing with a waggler in the cooler months is often one of the best ways to catch fish. For some reason, it's overlooked by a lot of people and very rarely gets used these days. I've got a winter league coming up next week down at White Springs where waggler fishing on the match rig is going to be the way to catch a good weight. So I thought I'm going to brush my skills up, I'll bring you down to Ceylon and run you through everything you need to know about waggler fishing in the cooler months. By using these straight traditional style wagglers in conjunction with probably the best winter bait ever used, sweet corn, I think we're going to catch an absolute boatload. Let me show you the ins and outs of the method. As with any method, setup is absolute key. Now, fishing this method is not rocket science, but getting your setup absolutely bang on when it comes to the fishing and the plumbing up is absolutely massive, and that's where a lot of people go wrong with this method, especially the plumbing up. So you want a couple of different tools for the job. I'm going to quickly show you how I've set up and how to plumb up. Okay, the setup. I've got an 11-foot Aventus here. I know this end of the lake is only probably 4.5 foot deep, 5 foot top, so I don't need a really long rod. You can use a 12-foot if you like. I really like these shorter rods. We're not fishing really far, but if it was sort of 6 foot, I'd probably want to use a 12-foot then. So it's an 11-foot Aventus. I've got a 3000 reel on there. That's one of the really old TDXs. I love them. Can't seem to get them anywhere anymore. I've got some 6-pound Pulse Pro, which does seem a little bit heavy for waggler line. A lot of people like using really low diameter lines, but with carp fishing today, fishing for fish between 2 and 6 pound, an odd bigger one mixed in, and I do strike quite hard and I don't want to get broke off and reset up every other chuck. So 6-pound line, at least when I hook one, I'm not thinking, is this main line going to snap? Nice and durable. Right, if you just have a look at the business end, really simple. What I've got there, I've just got a waggler swivel on there, free running on the line, and 2 rubber stops each side of the swivel there, just holding in place, and I can move that without damaging the line. The days of having or locking shots around your float, I think are gone. I'd rather use a loaded waggler and then stops and I can move it. Absolutely lovely. There's nothing down the line yet because we need to plumb up first, but after I've plumbed up and I put my actual fishing waggler on, I'll have 4 number 10s just strung out down the line. Down from there then, to attach my hook length, I've got a heli swivel. That's just a small one. Now when you're fishing with corn, you can get a lot of spin up, so you'll want some kind of a swivel there, or you'll be winding in, I will just come back with a bird's nest. I've got 10 inches of 014 Supernatural on there. I do like a longer hook length when I'm fishing with a waggler. If I want to put a little bit of line on the bottom, that allows me to do it. And because we've got 6-pound line on there, I just want to like keep that away from where my hook is. So I've got a nice, not light, but just like nicely balanced 014 line there. And then what I've been playing about with a lot, I used to hook my sweet corn, just hook it straight on, but I've gone back to hair rigging, especially for carp. Not so much for skimmers or F1s, I do like to hook the corn then, but if I'm fishing for carp, a hair rig is brilliant. So I've got a 16s SLWG on there, and then I've just got a little rapid spike on the end of the hair. Really simple stuff. So let's hook him back up. Now the next thing to consider is plumbing up. Now I've got 2 different wagglers. Let me just get this one off. This is my plumbing up waggler. And what you'll find with this one, there we go, that's the 2 wagglers. That one is shotted at capacity. So without those little dropper shots, it's shotted like that. With the droppers, it'll pull him down. Quite a thick bristle, but I don't mind that. When we're fishing out into the lake, the light can be bad. If the ripple gets up, I want to be able to see what I'm doing. And then this one, if you can see at the bottom there, I've taken all the discs off. So this will sit sort of that far out the water. So when I'm plumbing up, I know when it's like sort of shot it to about there, I know I'm just sort of 2 inches on bottom, dead depth, and then obviously under depth. So don't use the Waggler you're going to fish with the plumber because it's shot it down to there. It's really hard to read where you are. I know if that float's pulled right down to a little pimple, I am literally dead depth there like that. So that's what we're going to use to plumb up. Now the final little thing you're going to need is a plummet. Now you could use like a 10 gram plummet or a 20 gram plummet, but they're not very nice to cast. They cartwheel in the air, they go in with a hell of a crash and can ruin your peg before you even start. So what I do, I've just got 2 treble A's there with a little bait band just connecting them. So all I need to do now, just hook that rubber band. That's enough weight to sink my float so I can plumb up accurately, but it's not going in with an absolute commotion like a traditional plummet would. So easy to make. I have a couple of them. You can have them with 2 SSGs if you like, if it's quite windy. But today I think that'll be absolutely perfect for plumbing up. So let me show you the ins and outs of plumbing up. Okay, so we're ready to plumb up. I've got my far bank marker. There's like a big dark Christmas tree. So I've got a nice dark shadow in the water, which is really important when it comes to where you're going to fish and feed as well. I know if I'm in that strip, I'm feeding on the right line. So let's just hook on my little makeshift plummet. Now, I haven't got a clue, I haven't plumbed up or nothing to start, but I'm just going to start about 4 foot. Let's see how we get on with this. As you can see there, that goes in lovely, not a great big crash or nothing. Now straight away my float has gone just straight under, so I'm obviously under depth. So it's just a case now of like, you know, I'm not going to move it a foot, I'm just going to move it sort of 4 inches. I don't think we're a million mile away, to be honest, on our first go. So that's a nice thing with having these rubber stops rather than shot. I can just slide them up. No damage done to the line whatsoever. So let's try and get it back in that same place. There we go. So I'll just pay a little bit of line out again. Slightly under depth. You know, it'll take a few chucks to get it. Don't try and get it first shot because you want to try and get this as accurate as possible. So I'll go another 4 or 5 inches of depth on again. And then just nice and smooth because you've got that plummet on. She will try and twist in the air, but just a nice lob out. Still a touch under depth. Just feather it as it lands, just feather it in, try and keep everything in a straight line. You don't want your plummet to, you are. So there you can see now we're on the bottom. You can see the float sticking up there, the whole body's out, so we're a fair bit over depth there. So it's just a case now bringing those stops down a little bit, shallow enough to really fine tune it. But we're on the bottom, so we've got about, I haven't got a massive depth, I'd say, yeah, about 5 foot there. So I'm not going to bring loads down, this is going to be literally fine tuned job now, so it's going to be bring them down 3 inch. Nice and smooth. Just pay some line out, so there you are. Now look at that. I'd say we are probably there now, 1.5 inches on bottom, which is absolutely perfect. So I'm really happy with that. We've plumbed up. What I'm going to do, I'm going to whiz this in, and then just with a little bit of pull tape, I'm just going to mark the depth on my rod, just as a reference. I can always, you know, if I need to lay a little bit of line on the bottom if it's towing, it's no problem. So I'm just going to hook it on to my first eye there, and then offer it up to the rod there, look. So what I'll do, I'll just fold the float against the rod, and I know I'm just past that eye there. So I've got a little bit of tape. Again, just hold it up. I know I'm plumbed up to like 1.5 inches on the float there. That little bit of tape goes on there, and that's us plumbed up. So the next thing now is to set up a little fishing waggler, put some shot on the line. It's a big aeroplane going over, feed some bait and hopefully get stuck into a few nice winter carp. So finally we're ready to start. I put my little trimmer shots on. I got 5 number 10s plus the weight of my little swivel. I put my waggler that we're going to fish with on, so that's shotted now absolutely perfectly. So the next thing to do now, bait up and then loose feed some bait. So I've got my little bait spike there. So I'll just push my rapid spike into that, and then it's going to pick out a nice, a nice size grain of corn. I push the spike through like the open end, and then it'll come out then at the back. That rapid spike will sit nice and flat. And there we go. That's mounted absolutely perfectly. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to chuck my waggler where I want it, and then we'll feed some corn round it. So I've got my far bank marker, the old Christmas tree on the far side. A nice chuck past. And then I just let it sit there for a second. Now that wasn't my best chuck in the world, so I'm going to re-chuck that. Straight away I had a bow in my line. Now I don't want a bow, I want it dead straight to make it easier to sink my line, and I'm nice and direct then on the float. So I'll just check that corn. I lobbed that a little bit too high then, I just want to really punch it. There you are. Now you can see the line is right straight between my float and my tip. So I'm just going to sink that line. I'm just going to give it like 2 or 3 quick turns. A little strike. Get that line down. I've got my rod rest there, just for when I'm feeding. Now, when it comes to feeding, the right catapult is really important. A nice soft elastic, but with a hard pouch. Now, corn isn't the easiest thing in the world to feed. So take your time. Have a look for the right sort of size grains. I've got like 4 or 5 grains there that are around about the same size, and then it's just going to be a case of lobbing them out and trying to get them to land together, because if you try to force them out, they will go everywhere. They're an absolute nightmare. So let's see if we can just flick a few out there. That's it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to feed like 4 grains twice. I'm not going to fill the pouch up and blast them out there. I'm going to, let's chuck another one in there. I'm just going to try feed twice and then another lot. There we are. It's absolutely perfect, that. So let's see if we can get a bite. Might take a little bit of time to build it up, but I'm sure at some point we'll end up having a really nice run on this. Now that float is probably dotted just a touch too low there, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back. That's the nice thing about putting a few shots on. You can fine tune it exactly to how you want it then. So I'm going to slip that number 10 off there. Let's take a 10 off. And then we're back in again. So a nice punch. Look at that line is perfectly straight now behind the float. Sink the tip and then just 2 or 3 turns. This is quite new line on here, so it might take a little bit of bedding in. Ah, that float's lovely now. Just sitting absolutely perfectly there. I'm not going to like feed all the time. Every couple of minutes I'm just going to like dink 4 or 5 grains of corn in. Something falling through the water, especially when the water's clear like this. That's a brilliant way of it. Oh, there we go. Attractive fish into your peg. That's a bite. Second chuck in. No, that's not a bad start. That's a lovely bite as well. Such a good winter method. Like, you're marrying up a brilliant winter bait with a brilliant winter tactic. You're going to struggle to beat it, especially days like this where the wind's favourable. You know, it's not super deep, it's just like a nice depth. We're out into the lake, past where all the pole anglers can fish. There we are, it's a nice looking carp. Oh, big old common, is it? Yeah. And this will always outscore the bomb and corn on days like this. Yes, the bomb and corn can be good when it's rougher and you can't really present a waggler. But what's nice with this method is, look at that carp there, look. You get the drop, so you've got a lovely slow drop of the corn, and if you want to, you can twitch the waggler, kick the corn up, so it's almost like lifting and dropping on the pole. That's a beautiful fish to start with. Great big old Silent Lakes common, look at that. Now, we're not fishing ridiculously heavy gear, but 0.14 and a nice 16 hook, £6 mainline. Just stack the odds in your favour for these bigger style carp. Look at this here now. Well, £6 or £7 in anyone's money, that. Let's try and unhook him. What's going on here now? He's wrapped anyway. Hooked absolutely perfectly there. Let's try and hold him up. He's probably going to go nuts now because he didn't fight too much. There we go. Did he stick his dorsal fin up? No. So what a start. But what I can do now, because I've like got my eye in where that waggler is, what I'm going to do before I chuck back in, I'm just going to dink out like 4 or 5 grains of corn. They're lovely, they are. This is Jolly Green Giant stuff, but any stuff will do really. So there's just 4 grains and then another 4. That wind has just got up behind me a little bit now, so we'll have to be careful we don't feed these too far. So just lob them out. There we go. Again, I'm just going to pick out a nice sized piece of corn. There you are, that's a lovely piece that is. Thread him on, and he sits absolutely perfectly there. Now the benefit of using a hair rig, a lot of the time when you fish in the waggler, when you chuck it nice and get your line all nice and straight behind your float, I've had it in the past, because there's a hair rig, if I'm going to pick something up to feed, they're rod straight, they've actually hooked themselves, and that's the beauty of a hair rig, especially for carp fishing. So that wind is nice now, so let's just punch this waggler in. In he goes. Just let it sit a second and then. So we've just fed, so I'm not too worried about feeding for the minute. I don't want to pile loads and loads of corn in. Corn is one of those baits that is super attractive, even when you feed hardly anything. So I don't want to be turfing pouches and pouches of corn. Obviously, the more bites you get, you can feed a little bit more, but at the start of the session, oh, look at that. Gone again. I think this just proves how brilliant this method can be. If you get your setup right. The big part, like we said, plumbing up. You know, we've had 2 bites and hit 2, so that's like a combination. Look at him, look, he forgot to fight. Of plumbing up absolutely perfectly, using that hair rig, the right float, shotted it nicely. Fishing a distance that isn't too far, where you're trying to struggle to hit it. I think this carp's fallen asleep. He's got absolutely no interest in fighting, look. He's a decent fish as well. There you go. Nice fish. And he's hooked there, right in the middle of the top lip. Like that. Let's drop him back in. And the more you fish, the more you get your eye in when it comes to your feeding. So you won't have to worry about chucking your float in and feeding around it. You'll sort of know. Like what I've got there, I've got that dark bit of Christmas tree. And then this side of it, I got some light water. So I know if I'm like 2 meters past, I'm right where I need to be with my feed. So let's flick that out. I'm just going to dink 4 or 5 grains of corn again. Try and get them. I know it's a little bit fussing really, but if you can get them the same kind of size, you know they're going to group that much better. Oh, that's perfect. In they go. And then we'll just follow that in now with the waggler. Just chuck past. Sink that rod. A couple of quick turns. And there we are. We're just off the back edge of that feed there now, which is perfect really. And that's another thing with the hair rig. sinking your line, you know your bait's going to still be on. Sometimes when you hook, side hook a piece of sweet corn, when you want to sink your line, that's when you can pull through your corn and you'll be fishing away and not even know you've got no bait on. So another benefit of that there, using that hair rig. It's absolutely bumping with carp there at the minute. Bit of a heavier fish, that one. So when you're playing them, especially on the Waggler, because you're using slightly lighter gear, just keep everything smooth and just sort of keep the rod low and just kind of pump them back towards you. So just pull it, take 2 or 3 turns, pull them back towards you, and just try and keep everything low, because you don't really want them tearing off across the lake. They're behaving themselves today, but you will get an odd one that's an absolute lunatic. That feels like a nice fish. Here he comes. Oh yeah. Yeah, big boy that one, look. It's a big one. Oh. That is a proper one, that. Let's have a closer look at him. Oh. Right, he's going to let us hold him up. That is what you catch on a winter Waggler with sweet corn. What a fish. So I'm probably just a metre or 2 past my feed now. When things go a little bit quiet, sometimes it just pays just to go away from your main bit of feed. You'll often find an odd fish just hanging back a little bit, especially because we've caught a few now, and oh, there we are. We've had a bit of disturbance in the peg, and that just goes to prove the effectiveness of fishing off the back of your feed. Probably only 2 metres past, but they will drift in and out as the day goes on. We did give them a little bit of a hammer in early doors, so they probably thought, you know what, we're just going to hang off for a little bit. And not just chucking past left and right the same, that can be really good. Oh, feels like a nice fish. Such a nice way to fish as well. It's not just like a match winning method. If you're a pleasure angler, really exciting and rewarding way of fishing. I love it. I love fishing. Like, not many people do this anymore. It's sort of running line fishing. Fishing on the bottom. I know pelt Waggler's still really popular in the summer, but as for fishing Wagglers on the bottom, don't really seem to happen. There's a little squeaker. Look, he's wrapped himself all up around in the line there. You can see the corn in his mouth there, right in the corner of his mouth. There he is, look. There's the sweet corn. There. Around his dorsal, around his peck, and in the corner of the mouth. Absolutely lovely, that is. Off he goes. So I'm just going to keep carrying on for a little bit. Try and catch a few more in and around our feed. So let's just give that a little twitch. Sometimes I'll just get you a quick bite, get the attentions of a carp. It has slowed off a little bit now, so just little tricks like I will just get you an odd fish here and there. Like we've had one chucking past. Let's see if that little twitch will get us one. There's a little indication, so there is an odd fish still there. It's just twitching back again. Exactly the same principle as fishing the pole. There we go, on the twitch. Absolutely bang on. And it's just all those little bits put together will catch those extra couple of fish. You know, we're in January now, and I think this method has just proved how efficient it is, how good it is. And it's there's nothing quite like watching a float out in the lake. I know it's nice catching them on a rod and seeing that tip drag in, but I don't know, catching them on a float out in the lake, something special about that. That feels like a nice fish, that does, look. Oh yeah, he's banging away a bit like Billy there. Oh yeah, good one. That's a good one, that is. Let's take our time, make sure we get this one. Yeah, lovely fish. Come on, oh boy. It's funny how some of them fight like absolute maniacs, and then we had those couple early, they just sort of, I think they fell asleep after I hooked them, just wound them straight in. This one's having none of it though. Such good fun waggler fishing like this, I love it. When you get it right. Oh, look at that. There he is. He's out was, boys. That's a cracker. Oh, and I got half a tree stuck to it as well. Now, one thing I'm going to have a little go at, just as a bit more of a standout bait, and I go double corn, but I'm not going to put two huge bits on, like two like smaller pieces. Can work really well, that can. So let's just take our time, pick out two nice cubes. I've got to make sure I can get them both on the hair, so they can't be the giant ones, but just sometimes just a different kind of a setup like that. Double corn, brilliant carp bait. So there's a bit of a crosswind kicked up now, so I'm going to have to punch this and make sure that line is straight as a die behind my float. There she is. So quickly before that line lands, just check it, sink a tip. There we go. And we're fishing. Let's ping a bit of corn around it. That's perfect, that is. Oh yes, my girl. Let's just let that sit there a second. Just a bigger hook bait might pick us out a quicker bite. Just a little bit awkward to see there now with that ripple on it. That's why you want those thick, nice thick bristle float. I can still see that, I'll know if I get a bite, but I wouldn't want to be fishing any thinner really. So just twitch that back. She is. Oh yes. Double corn on the twitch. How was about that? Absolutely mega. That feels like a good one again. Got him out there, look. He's got no interest in fighting this one. What a great bit of winter fishing here, boys. So we'll try and pull a fast one on him now. We'll just tease him in, slow vark like this. I can see the double corn just in his top lip there. And then lift him up last second. There we go. Another one in the net. Absolute class, that is. Oh. We've got him nailed now. Just that little twitch. He's just getting us just a quick response really. I'm sure if we sat there for longer we'd catch one with it just sat static, but definitely just moving that hook bait. You know, a lot of the colours dropped out of the water on this lake now, so visually visual hook baits and moving hook baits is definitely the way to go. Feels like another nice fish, so I'm gonna call it a day on this fish now. We've had an absolutely unbelievable session. But just remember, get your setup right, take your time plumbing up, really get your plumbing up spot on. Get the right catapults for your feeding, try and group your feeding best you can. And the rewards are there to be seen. We've just had an unbelievable day, and I don't know many other methods that would have produced like this for us today. So this feels like an absolutely dandy fish to finish on. What we got here? Oh yeah, look at the size of this. Right, I'm definitely finishing on that. Hooked right in the middle of the top lip. Oh. How's that? For an absolute brute. Oh yeah, that's £10 that is. Oh. We'll have some of that, boys. Look at this. Corn right in the middle of the top lip. Don't jump now, boy. Look at that. So there he is, look. What a fish to end on. £10 of anybody's money, that is. Let's just gently put him back in the net. So I hope you've enjoyed that video. There's loads of little tips and tricks in there. I'm sure you can put that into your own fishing. Get out on the bank. Even though it's cold, there's still a load of fish like this to be caught. I'll catch up with you on another video.